Gaming as an industry has always had a bit of a habit of taking two completely separate genres and then slapping them together to see what happens. A lot of the time these experiments go exactly as you would expect them to, and the developer finds out firsthand why no one else has tried to create the gaming splice that they have. However, there are some mashups that against all odds come together wonderfully to create something that feels brand new, yet weirdly familiar for those who like the two genres that helped make the new title. Think of these games as the salted caramels and the pineapple on pizza of the video game world. We've seen these genre blends in the AAA games like Persona, which combines life sim and turn-based JRPG mechanics, and we've seen it in games like Portal, which combines FPS gameplay with mind-bending puzzles. However, as you would expect, we want to shine a light on the little guys. Due to the added freedom, the world of indie dev can get pretty weird. As a result, so can the mashups. But the good news is that we love weird here at IGC, so in a bid to embrace the absurdity, here is a list of the best indie genre mashups that weirdly work. In at number 1 we have Yoku's Island Express. We begin with a game that takes a forgotten pastime that dominated the 1980s arcade scene and makes it relevant by mashing it together with a classic Metroidvania format. Yoku's Island Express sees you take control of a little dung beetle who has managed to land himself a job as the island's postman, and while you are only a junior delivery specialist learning the ropes, you'll still be expected to navigate the island, charm the locals, and use your unique brand of skills to help restore the island to its former glory. The story and the Metroidvania based upgrades and problem solving are great, but the real star of the show here is the pinball mechanic that makes up large portions of the game. To get around, you'll need to platform through pinball machine segments of the map, using your paddles to whack your little dung beetle where you need to go. It sounds like an idea that has no right to work, yet in practice it feels so unique, fresh, and most importantly, fun. It's a game that is criminally underrated, so go and show Yoku some love. In at number 2 we have Thirsty Suitors. Next we have Thirsty Suitors, an unapologetically Gen Z title that caters to all creeds, cultures, sexualities and genders, offering a gripping story that acts almost like a dating sim in reverse. You see, when you take control of Jala, you are returning to a town where you have caused a bucket load of emotional heartbreak, and instead of winning hearts, you'll be trying to mend them. You'll have to do this through turn-based combat, where you will use emotional triggers to inflict weaknesses, and then use devastating heavy attacks to fend off the advances of creeps and weirdos. Then to make matters a little weirder, the game also offers skateboarding traversal and challenges, loads of rhythm portions, and a wealth of cooking mini-games. So in short, it's a teen drama, dating sim, skating game with cooking mama elements, turn-based RPG elements, and more. It's a wacky one to say the least. But even with so many varied ideas vying for your attention, Thirsty Suitors comes together to offer a whimsical and wonderful experience that you need to try. In at number 3 we have Dredge. There have been a number of games that have shown how ripe the high seas are for horror. Subnautica is a great example, as is Iron Lung. However, I don't think anyone would have expected a game that primarily consists of resource management and fishing minigames to be quite as chilling as Dredge. This game sees you play as a fisherman who must make a living in the little coastal town of the Morrows, but soon expands into a tale of mystery and intrigue that will see you work alongside the mysterious collector to uncover the Lovecraftian secrets of the archipelago. The game masterfully weaves Resident Evil style Tetris adjacent menuing with accessible fishing minigames, but then also adds in a dash of survival horror for good measure. Players will need to decide whether to stay out at night and brave the perils of the deep in the hope of catching another prize fish, or head home to make do with their modest haul for the day. It's a competent mashup of cozy gaming mechanics and chilling horror that inexplicably works, making this a recent indie gem that you need to pick up and play. In at number 4 we have Neon White. If you're someone who loves the art of speedrunning, then you might want to try Neon White, a game that allows players to speedrun speedrunning. Neon White tells the tale of a group of criminals that have earned the chance to compete to earn a spot in heaven rather than descend to the fiery pits below. The group of former gangsters will need to defeat demons to burn through stages at pace and rise through the ranks to become heaven's unlikely champion. The story has a rather gripping anime feel to it, but the real star of the show here is the platforming meets first-person shooter approach. Players will need to master free running, optimize their paths to the finish line, be sure shots with their weapons, and will need to adapt their usual usual gaming habits to think like a speedrunner. It's not about doing things right, it's about doing them fast. Neon White was many indie fans' favourite title of 2022, and it's easy to see why. So if you want to see what all the fuss was about, jump into this one and get going. In at number 5 we have Rollerdrome. As someone who grew up with the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series and still skates as a 27-year-old man, I'll play just about anything that pays homage to games of this nature, but usually this leads to disappointment as few have ever captured the lightning in a bottle that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater did. Well, all of this changed when Rollerdrome came along. Rollerdrome is an arcade skater that sees you play as Kara Hassan, a combatant in Rollerdrome, a fight to the death competition where players will need to rollerblade around, racking up combos and moving with style and flair, but equally you'll need to use an arsenal of weapons to blow enemies to kingdom come until you're the last person standing. The way this game intertwines the combat and skating mechanics is brilliant, such as requiring players to perform tricks to reload their weapon, for example, and overall, the arcade feel of this title makes it perfect for short sessions, but equally very hard to put down. If you somehow miss this rollerblading bloodbath, you need to boot up and get playing real soon. In at number 6 we have Cult of the Lamb. We have seen management sims about dying in the form of Spiritfarer. We have seen management sims that have us corral inmates in the form of Prison Architect, and we have even seen games that have thrust us into the role of budding Power Wash related business owners in Power Wash Simulator. Yet somehow, Cult of the Lamb tops them all with an even more peculiar format. This game plays like a hack and slash dungeon crawler where you will have to go out on crusades to gather items, beat bosses and progress the story, which is nothing all that peculiar. However, when you aren't out there hacking and slashing, you'll be back at your compound running a cult. Through manipulation, intimidation and oozing pure charisma, you'll need to control and expand your flock to gain enough influence to progress the game, making this a 50-50 split between action and resource management. It's dark and taboo, yet cute and cuddly all at the same time. So if you like your cozy games with a bit of edge, then Cult of the Lamb is a great choice. In at number 7 we have Crypt of the Necrodancer. Rhythm games have been around forever, but they pretty much have been the same ever since Parappa the Rapper was a relevant character in the gaming scene. The music plays, button prompts roll across the screen, and you press it when it hits its mark. That's the traditional format, but occasionally we see games that break convention, and one of the first to do this within the rhythm genre was Crypt of the Necrodancer. This is a game that offers a top-down Zelda-style adventure mixed with fundamental roguelike elements. However, the real draw of this game is that you can only move your character to the beat of the soundtrack that pulses as you play. Through a grid system, the area of play will light up briefly, indicating when players can move, and then they can move a space to explore, attack, or retreat, depending on the situation. Oh, and you can even import your own tunes if you prefer, which is pretty awesome. It's a game that pulls no punches and to this day still offers one of the hardest gaming experiences perhaps ever, but if you want a rhythm-based challenge, there is no better option than Crypt of the Necrodancer. In at number 8 we have Cuisineer. I thought about adding in the resource management meets restaurant management sim Dave the Diver, but then I thought, hey, let's give in to recency bias just for fun. Cuisineer shares a lot of similarities with Dave the Diver in the sense that players will need to run a restaurant, and equally they will have to go out when not running the lunch service to gather ingredients and materials needed to keep expanding and developing their business. However, the key difference here is that Cuisineer offers more of a roguelike dungeon crawler feel to progression that isn't unlike the aforementioned Cult of the Lamb. You'll go out on adventures to get more and more rare ingredients to make progressively complex meals. You'll also gather materials that can be used to get your hands on stylish furniture to make your restaurant look the part. Plus, the game has RPG elements like equipment and weapon upgrades, so you can be the most fearsome culinary warrior around. It's cute, colourful, and has that essential just one more day gameplay loop that we all crave. So if you're sold, be sure to hop into this one. In at number 9 we have Laika Aged Through Blood. If you play games similar to Trials Fusion, then you'll know that motocross platformers are a niche but very fun brand of games. However, they tend to be a little one note. Well, enter Laika Aged Through Blood, a game that takes the traversal present in motocross platformers and then gives you an arsenal of weapons to fend off enemies in a Western Metroidvania setting. They lovingly refer to this blend as Motorvania. The game boasts incredible animated visuals and a rich tribal narrative that tells a story dripping dripping in spite and vengeance. Plus, it has a wealth of quests and bosses to defeat in a world that is nuanced and lovingly created. It's gritty, gory, and demands respect in a saturated field of Metroidvanias, ranking up there with the finest the subgenre has ever produced. It's a hard game and the controls do take a lot of getting used to, but if you want a Metroidvania that seeks to galvanize the genre and stand out from the crowd, Laika is an obvious choice. In at number 10 we have Ultimate Chicken Horse. Now we have a genre blend that is so seamlessly executed that it makes you wonder how no one ever thought of it until Ultimate Chicken Horse arrived on the scene. In this game you play with a group of friends and the goal is to place booby traps and platforms in set level templates, and the end goal is to make it as difficult as possible for your opponents to get from A to B while carving out a safe path for yourself to get to the end zone. It's essentially competitive Mario Maker, and it's super intense. Not only does this game offer incredible party game antics to enjoy, the game also has a great soundtrack, a batch of colourful characters, and a wealth of customization options allowing you to build, play, and compete for the best global times on various custom build challenge levels. It's a platformer where everyone can get involved, so if you are looking for a new multiplayer game to fall out with your friends over, then Ultimate Chicken Horse is a game for you. In at number 11 we have Rocket League. It's hard to pitch Rocket League as an indie game considering it's under the Epic Games umbrella these days. However, we are mainly looking at the quality of the genre mashing format here, and considering it was present way back in 2009 in Rocket League's predecessor, Super Acrobatic Rocket Powered Cars, we think that there's no doubt that the football meets automobile combo is deeply rooted in the indie scene. Rocket League is a game that essentially takes the Top Gear episode where they played football in cars and uses that concept to create a genuinely phenomenally crafted team-based multiplayer game that is still one of the top esports titles around. Through using rocket propulsion, flipping through the air, and working as a team, you use your RC cars to score goals, dominate the field, and then proceed to spam "what a save" in the chat. It's a game that I personally lost thousands of hours of my life to, and while I never reached the lofty heights of Grand Champion rank, it was still a blast trying. In at number 12 we have Golf Story. This is a game that doesn't get the love and respect that it perhaps deserves, probably because it's a Nintendo Switch exclusive, which is just a tad weird. You Switch players will probably already know and love this one, but for the rest of the class, Golf Story is a game that rather unsurprisingly involves you taking up the sport of golf. You'll play as a down-on-your-luck guy who just wants to rekindle a passion for the sport he and his father bonded over. Most people would settle for lowering their handicap a little or getting a birdie on a tricky course, but your player character goes all out and aims to play on the Pro Tour. So to achieve this unreasonable goal, you'll need to complete quests, collect collectibles, and sink putts to earn enough cash and reputation to make it to the big leagues. It's a game that has a surprisingly touching story and offers gameplay variety beyond any other golfing title around, thanks to an RPG blend, and while it's still a golfing game, it's one that actually makes the sport seem cool. So stick on some cashmere, slip on some khakis, and get swinging. In at number 13 we have Supermash. This one is a bit of a wildcard entry, not only because it was critically panned across the board, but also because the game itself is a facilitator of mashing genres rather than a deliberate mash of two ideas. In Supermash, you begin by selecting two different genres that you want to mash together, and then the game takes over, building a unique blend for you that is different every single time you mash themes together. You could blend a shooter and a platformer, or a turn-based RPG with a beat-em-up, it's completely up to you. The premise of this game is that you, a retro game store clerk, finds a magic game console that can auto-create games based on old classics of each genre, and you can customize your criteria to create a game that is tailor-made to suit you. You can build games that offer a challenge, games that are full of weird bugs and glitches, or games that offer a gripping story worth getting invested in. I will concede that due to the absolutely ridiculous scope of this project, that it's a novelty that wears thin pretty quickly, plus the game isn't necessarily well made either, but for those initial hours where you get to roleplay as a game dev let off the leash, I would recommend you give it a try. In at number 14 we have Monster Sanctuary. Team 17 seems to get a real kick out of blending Metroidvanias with other genres, because after the success of Yoku's Island Express, along came a Metroidvania meets creature tamer called Monster Sanctuary. An easy way to think of this one is that this is roughly what would have happened if the Pokemon franchise was thrust into a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania setting. It seems like a bridge too far to employ platforming, exploration, and deep turn-based creature combat into one title, but somehow Monster Sanctuary makes it work with ease. This game is all about using the right companions for the right situation. You can use your monsters to traverse previously unreachable areas, you can use them to solve environmental puzzles, and of course, you'll need to build a synergized team that can lay waste to all the enemies in your way. The game begins as a 50-50 split of the two genres, but we will concede that by the end, the game is very much an out-and-out monster teamer where combat is king and exploration is secondary. But putting this aside, Monster Sanctuary is a seamless blend of two popular genres and well worth checking out if you're sick of modern Pokemon games. And in at number 15, we have Orcs Must Die 3. We wrap things up with a game that offers a rich blend of multiplayer fun, high-octane action, and deep, nuanced strategy. Orcs Must Die is a series that offers gameplay not unlike Fortnite's Save the World mode, where players will need to protect their base by not only using weapons and skills to kill orcs, but also using resources to build traps and machines capable of lending a hand and automating the killing. It's essentially Bloons Tower Defense, but you're also out there in the field slaying orcs. Thanks to a range of brand new levels, weapons, a new campaign, and a wealth of new challenge modes to choose from, the third in the trilogy is bigger and better than those that have come before, offering a new, never-ending wave of orcs you'll need to deal with in creative and brutal ways. It's about as hands-on as a strategy game can get, placing you in the fray amongst the chaos, and if that sounds like a bucket load of fun, then you need to grab a weapon and prepare to defend your fortress. So there you have it, 15 weird indie mashups that defy the odds to come together wonderfully and serve as some of the best indie games on the market. Not all mashups are great, but we hope that developers continue to take big swings like this in the future, because when it comes off, it tends to be something pretty special. We hope that we have added some peculiar combos to your wishlist, and as always, thank you for watching Indie Game Culture. I've been Cal, and I will see you next time.